Hi, boys and girls. I have missed seeing you. I'm so excited that I get to read you a story. I chose the book, Papa Chuck's Big Ideas in the Bible, and it's written by Chuck Swindoll. And Chuck Swindoll is a grandfather, and he is the hero in a lot of these stories, but he also makes God the hero in a lot of the stories. And so hopefully you enjoy listening to me read the book. Within this book, there's lots of little stories. So I'm going to read the story, Good News Bears, a story about trusting God. When I'm afraid, I will trust in you. Strike three, the umpire roared. You're out. Buddy sadly walked back to the bench. Hugh Jag McGruff is just too hard to hit, Buddy sobbed to his teammates. McGruff howled with laughter. Ha, ha, ha. He appeared almost frightening as he paced back and forth on the pitcher's mound. It was the last inning of the big game. The score was tied and there were 2 outs. This was the Bears' last chance. Coach Clausen, the Bears manager, scratched his head. Who could he put in to pinch hit against the Tigers? Who wants to pinch hit? Coach Clausen asked as he looked into the faces of the Bears sitting on the bench. Not me, said Fuzzy. Hugh J is too big. Me neither, cried Itchy. McGruff is too fast. Meanwhile, Hugh J. McGruff spat on the ground and cracked jokes about the Good News Bears. I will, said a high-pitched voice. Let me bat. Oh, no, not Landon, the Bears growled. Only 6 years old, Landon was the youngest and smallest member of the Good News Bears. In fact, he had barely made the team. Most of the time, Landon carried a water bucket so the other players could get a cool drink. Doesn't anyone else want to bat? Coach groaned. Nobody made a sound as Hugh J. McGruff made nasty faces at the Good News Bears. I'll bat, Landon said cheerfully. Coach sighed. Okay, Landon, you may as well strike out too. Everybody else has. Landon grabbed his bat and ran out to the batter's box. He kicked the dirt around with his bare paw, just as he had seen the big league Bears do. Then he raised his bat over his shoulder and he stared at Hugh Jag McGruff. McGruff laughed. What's this little squirt doing in the game? Ha, ha. Just then, Landon caught a glimpse of Papa Chuck sitting in the bleachers. Come on, Landon, you can do it, Papa Chuck shouted. Don't be afraid. Size means nothing. Remember David and his slingshot. Landon smiled. He knew exactly what Papa Chuck meant. He remembered the story of David and Goliath very well. A long time ago, there was a battle between God's people and another army. In those days, soldiers didn't have submachine guns or fighter planes. Instead, they fought their wars with spears and swords and clubs. The other army, the bad guys, had a really scary giant who fought on their side. He was almost 10 feet tall, and his name was Goliath. One day, Goliath yelled, Nobody is as tough and mean as I am. Send your best soldier to fight me. If I can kill him, the battle is over and our side wins. If he whips me, you win. Now, God's people were supposed to have lots of courage because God was on their side. But when they heard Goliath's voice, they were really scared. God seemed very far away, even though he really wasn't, because God is omnipresent. He is always near his people. God's people had a king named Saul, and he was the leader of their army. Anybody want to fight Goliath? He asked hopefully. I'll give a big reward to anybody who kills the giant. I'll even give you one of my daughters as a bride. The soldiers glanced at each other. They were big and strong and well-trained fighters. But right then, they were more afraid than anything else. And Goliath was at least 10 times tougher than they were. King Saul shook his head sadly. I wish somebody here wasn't afraid to try. Of course, King Saul didn't want to try either, but nobody mentioned that because he was the king. Just then, a teenager named David walked up to King Saul. David said, Don't worry about Goliath, King Saul. God will win for us. I will fight the giant for you. The king was worried, and he was curious too. He asked, You're just a shepherd boy. What do you know about giants? David shrugged his shoulder. I don't know anything about giants, but I do know something about God. God can take care of his people. Plus, I'm a pretty good shot with this, David grinned. He pulled out a slingshot out of his back pocket. I'm not afraid to take on this giant. Furthermore, as long as God is on our side, we can't lose. By that time, Goliath was stomping around in the middle of the battlefield, getting madder by the minute. Come on out and fight! I'll take on anybody. Okay, King Saul said to David, give it a try. And, he added, the Lord be with you. So David trusted God as he marched out to the face of the giant. Goliath was angrier than ever. How dare you send that little peepsqueak out to face me, he roared. He rushed toward David with a spear. You're fighting me with a sword and a spear, David shouted at Goliath, but I'm fighting you in the name of the Lord. He makes his people strong. David quickly put a rock in a slingshot and sent it flying through the air. The rock was right on target. It hit the giant smack in the middle of the forehead. With a great crash, Goliath fell to the ground. Because a boy trusted God, God's people had won the battle. Whoosh! The ball sped past Landon. Strike one, the umpire roared. Hugh J. McGruff threw the ball again, this time even harder. Landon was scared, so he prayed, I am trusting you, Lord. Help me do my best. Strike two, said the man in blue. Landon heard Papa Chuck's encouragement. Remember David, he yelled. With fresh courage, Landon blinked and stepped back into the batter's box as he gripped his bat tightly. McGruff threw the ball one more time. Landon swung with all his might. Crack! What a hit! The ball soared over McGruff's head. Going, gone, Papa Chuck cheered. The ball kept climbing until it flew over the fence for a home run. The Good News Bears won the game. As Landon rounded the bases, the Bears ran onto the field to greet him at home plate. Fuzzy called, How did you hit the ball so hard? Landon answered, The Lord helped me. Papa Chuck hurried into the field. I knew you could do it. Papa smiled as he lifted Landon into his arms and gave him a great big Papa Bear hug. The next time you're afraid of something or someone, remember how David trusted God and won the victory. Ask God to help you too. The end. Boys and girls, I hope you enjoyed my story. And if you want to borrow this book, there's about 10 stories in it.